Hello, this is Gravel Crusher, and I am running Kirby and Amazing Mirror any percent. Now to start this game off, there are a lot of simple mechanics like sliding off ledges and jumping sometimes makes you faster. And this part right here, it's actually a part you need teammates in to get past that door, but there's actually, if you time it right, you can actually do it yourself. Right here, this is a power mix to get wheel, since wheel is one of the fastest powers in the game. And to trigger that door there, we needed to open that chest, and we only do things in here that are fast as possible. And now the only door open was that one, so we have to take that one mirror. And to minimize time, we use wheel pretty much just whenever we can. We also try to limit hitting enemies, since hitting enemies kind of wastes frames, so the less enemies you hit, the more frames you waste. So there's key movement here in this game that that saves time. Running into walls with wheel wastes time, and just jumping in general saves time than floating. So that's why sometimes you see me, you know, jumping up and letting go of air, because it's faster to jump than to actually just float up. And I guess I could explain the teamwork mechanic in this game. The teamwork mechanic is you have 3 other Kirbys in the game that allow you to kind of have help whenever you need it. So you have a battery on the top left, which is your phone, and whenever you need help, with an enemy or something, you can call them in and they'd come in and help you and actually give you health as well. But you only have 3 battery bars, so you can only use it 3 times before you have to recharge by getting another battery. And that actually there was a sub-boss we beat. It was a quick kill by using depositing your power and taking 2 Waddle Dees to shoot at it to drain its health very fast, and just finishing it off with wheel, since wheel isn't that very powerful. But that room that I got to, was actually just a cutscene, and you can actually skip that specific cutscene. It just makes it basically so you can connect that specific area back to the homeland where you started, or the home world, I guess you would say. And coming up here is our very first boss, so we get rid of wheel to get a much better power to actually kill with. Wheel is really just optimal for moving. It's not really good for killing bosses. And right here is another button that we activate to connect another area to the home world. Right here is the first boss, the entry to it. And King Golem is our very first boss, which we use rock to kill in probably about 3 seconds. And the goal of the game is actually fill up these shards right here. So basically we gotta kill 8 bosses. And the right there is a reset. What we do to reset is it basically skips the Kirby dance and also brings you back to the home place faster than, you know, watching the Kirby dance and then actually standing at the spot that you entered. So resetting in this game does save a little bit of time. And right here we just need to fall down. There are many ways you can kind of fall down in this area, but it just depends which way you prefer. Another place we have to fall down. And here's another good place to kind of see. Skipping enemies by jumping over them just saves frames, because if I went through all those enemies, there'd be such a big time loss just from frames being wasted. Another cool thing about water is you can run over, with wheel, is you can run over water with it, which I think is really cool. It's kind of a neat to the wheel power, because you're going really fast. That right there, I bonked the wall, so the guy actually ended up hitting me. It didn't cost me anything except a couple seconds. And right there, I jumped over the Waddle Dee, or sorry, It's not a Waddle Dee, but I jumped over him to save frames, but I wasn't paying attention and accidentally ran into the wall. And water is a very scary area because you can actually get hit and actually lose your power. And in land, you can recover by grabbing your power back and sucking it back in. In water, you can't suck any powers back in. So once you get hit and it hits the roof while like there's water in the area, it just disappears. It doesn't come back. And this is just another area that we actually need, so we activate the power there. That part right there, I very badly misjudged my jump there, but again, doesn't hinder me much at all, because it's very easy to recover from. And while using your wheel, you actually are pretty much invincible when you're actually attacking. So like, any enemies running into me get hurt, and any cannons that you can't destroy or Gordos, you can actually just run through and they don't hurt you. It just slows you down like you're actually hitting an enemy, but you don't do damage to them. And they don't do damage to you. And again, another water area. Losing your power here is pretty bad. It's recoverable, but it's really, really bad for time-wise. And like I said, while you're attacking, you don't get hit. But like, why I'm pivoting is like the one point you actually are vulnerable with tire. So that's why you need to be very careful about where you pivot against enemies, because they can hurt you if you're pivoting in a spot by like turning around. And here I get rid of wheel to, you know, return to normal Kirby. There's a power that I need upcoming soon. This is the power right here, which is sword. And this is like the big first skip of the game. So we call in our friends to come help us with this skip. And whenever, this is like the first bar that we use of our phone, that our teammates will come and give me health and help. So they come up with me, and this part right here, where that that bomb was, hitting it actually like blows up the pathway in front of us, but it wasn't supposed to be accessed from our side. That's why the bomb was on the other side. But by using our teammates, we can actually jump off their heads and use an upward sword slash to get rid of the pathway, which avoids going around and actually fighting another sub-boss and saves a ton of time, actually. But after that, we don't use our teammates anymore, and we get rid of sword since it's not any use of us against bosses and such. So, at this point, I don't really have any power, and therefore I don't really need to be extremely careful about what I hit, but hitting enemies does save, waste time. Right there, I was being chased by the Gordo, and there wasn't any way to avoid it, really. Unless I stayed and wasted time by slowing down. Right there, I didn't have enough time, I guess, to react to that enemy. We avoid the big rock guy because he does give you the same power as rock. As Rocky does, but he's a bigger version, so it takes more time to suck in. So we avoid him and go for the lower guy, because we're going to use stone for the next boss as well. We just avoid him right there. And right here, there is a way you can get by it, enemies, but I'm playing it safe there. Is to not lose my power up. And there's an upwards and a downwards area. Downward, I would have to destroy blocks, so I take the upward area because I only have to avoid one enemy. Using rock to kind of bring myself down faster. And here's another boss, which I missed the first rock. The second rock I hit, though. And that's the second boss there. And there's the next shard. So after this, as soon as the mirror disappears, it saves our data that we actually beat that boss. So then right there is where I reset. And click back into my file. And we are on to the next boss. But first, we gotta get the fastest movement in the game, which is wheel. and that's the best place to get it. Like, there is no spot in the game that's faster than that. That's like the fastest spot to get wheel. So like basically for every single power character, there's always like a bigger version of them that takes a lot more to kill. So like right above us right there, that guy is Laser. He's not a boss. He's just a bigger enemy and takes more to suck in or kill. Right there, I got a little too close to the bomb. No biggie, just wasted a second. And this part's pretty straightforward. Just kind of follow the pathway. And this part's pretty easy to follow as well. You just fly straight up in the and follow a direct path. None of those people will hit you. And to avoid that wheel enemy, we just kind of sit in the corner there, wait for it to fall down. And here's another button. Like right there, it shows that it doesn't connect to the home world except to the next part. So we go into the actual area that it connected to, and we push that button, which allows it to go to the home world. So we can access the area that we're in right now with the home world now, because we will be coming back to that later. For the places we don't need, we don't actually activate the button for. It's in any percent we only are focused on beating the 8 bosses in the final boss. This part right here is kind of tricky, because if you hit the spikes and your power hits the spikes as well, you lose your power. So in this part, I lose my power for a second just so I can suck it back in and keep it safe until the very end there. And this part is also pretty risky if you're not careful with it as well. And like right there, like I said, you lose frames after hitting enemies like that. And here we take the damage because there's no way to avoid it. And this pathway just follows itself. There's no actually user input at this point. And on to the third boss here. This is Mega Titan, and it's actually the one boss you do want to use wheel with. Because if you hit it into those electric areas, that electrocutes it. So using wheel here is actually really, really good for doing that, because of your invincibility. And then another boss comes out too. It's the head of the first guy, which you end up killing with wheel. And this is like the one point in the game that I actually don't reset. Because if you reset, you lose your power, and if I were to reset, I was just gonna go back to wheel and grab it again anyways. So to save time, I don't reset, because I go through the same door for the fourth boss. So I have wheel, and I save my power and time by not resetting this time. And play it safe, because my movement was just a tad bit off there for the fishes. I actually ended up killing both of them. This part's kind of annoying because you have to waste a lot of time just killing blocks, but nothing risky. And we now wait for that guy to get by. Again, avoiding as much enemies as we can because it saves frames, which ends up costing seconds if you're not careful. And I don't use wheel all the time down in that area, falling down, because I find it really hard to control if you're not careful, and like you can bonk into walls, and it's easier just to fall. And those blocks right there are kind of annoying as well if you're not careful, because you need to be standing in the middle of them for them to disappear. And if you gotta sometimes stop also when you destroy blocks like that, because wheel goes faster than the blocks being destroyed are. So you actually have to like let go of wheel for a second to actually let the blocks be destroyed before you do that. Also, mirrors in this game are very tricky and actually can like cost you runs if you're not careful. Not because they like make it so you can't go on further. If you don't get them before they burrow, they can actually like protect a mirror from being entered. So in order to like make them pop back up from burrowing, you actually have to like enter a room and leave it. And there's one area that level wasn't too bad because there's like a door right beside it. But further in the run, there's a spot that's really a pain if you don't get it the first time. And here's a Smash Bros. Character, Master Hand. And he's probably one of my favorite powers. He has this power called Smash Ability, which actually gives you 4 different powers, with Rock being your down attack, Hammer being your side attack, and Fighter if you're just having attacks and not touching anything, and Cutter and Sword as your upwards attack. In this area, we just fly to the right to avoid enemies falling down. Here, we kill one of the bomb guys, because even if we killed, if we didn't kill both of them, there would have been 2 explosions, wasting time. So we kill one of them to save at least 1 explosion from going off, rather than 2. That jump's a little tricky sometimes to get, because as soon as you hit like a cannon, it slows down everything really fast. So it's just kind of hard to hit with the frames he gives you. So right there, we ditch our wheel power to use Sword, because it's the best power for what we're fighting here. This is Meta Knight. He can be very like hard to fight because of his ability to just walk into you to hurt you. So while you're doing the upwards attack like that I was just doing, you can actually be invincible while you're doing that. And to finish him off, all I do is throw an object at him like that star. So since we don't have any power up, and we're just going to reset here to also fill up our health bar as well, because you don't get your health back after beating a boss. So this part actually right here, we don't go back to get wheel because of the area we're going to. So we grab Missile, which is really good movement power as well. It's really hard to control though. Like, some people don't use Missile and actually use something else instead, because if you're not fast enough with Missile, it actually ends up wasting time. I actually ended up having a little bit of trouble with Missile at this part. Fortunately, this is the mirror I was talking about earlier, that if you don't get it, it kind of costs you a lot of time in a run. But this is where it actually makes up a lot of its time, is flying up instead of floating. And now we're in Mustard Mountain, which is just a volcano area. But this is the part right here that we ditch Missile, actually. To pick up Wheel again, because it's best moving. Like I said, when you're using Wheel, you're invincible, so running into lava with Wheel doesn't hurt you. But after you bonk into the lava, you gotta be careful because you can get hurt by it. And here I accidentally ditched my power at the wrong spot, because I was afraid like, if you suck up an enemy and your old power, it'll just make you have the old power instead. So that's where I was being very careful, because if I sucked that enemy up, I would have lost both powers, which allow you to kill that sub-boss really easy, and then now you're on to the actual boss. This is Krakow. It's kind of hard to kill him, but it is a lot faster to kill him with Rock. You just gotta be very careful for what he's doing. Like, right there, he used rain against me. Fortunately, his RNG wasn't too bad for me, so I was able to get the kill relatively fast. And from here, we reset because we have rock ability. And we need wheel. At this point, there's actually an area that is close by to the part where we're going towards. So right here is a door that has wheel. So this is the only time we actually get wheel from a different place. Now we're on to Peppermint Palace. It's my favorite area of the game, just because the music is really cool. And then we also have to connect both these points to the homeland, the homeworld. And then these points we actually don't need to stop right at that area to jump, because wheel jumping would actually get us just as far. And that part right there, I had to wait just a split second to let the guy's cutter get by. And here's Mr. Frosty once again. We fight him quite often, actually, in this as a sub-boss. I actually had a little bit of trouble with him. Just, it's really weird trying to fight this boss on ice, because, like, sometimes when you think you're supposed to stop, you actually start sliding more, and you actually run into him, which sometimes can end up like that, which is just a waste of time. Now, here, in my opinion, is, like, the hardest movement in the game, for, like, how much, like, you can lose wheel in these areas. Because there's a lot of edges you can fall off, which your power can get lost to. And we enter this door and exit it, because when you blow up those bombs, it makes a roof on top that you can't enter through. So we just reset that area, and this button is what button we don't press because we don't need to connect this place to the home world. We don't actually visit here again. And here's another area. If you use wheel here, you will break through those blocks and actually end up dying, so you have to be really careful. It's like another area like that. We have to be really careful about it. If you because if you wheel into these breakable blocks, you will actually, like, destroy it from underneath you. Just something that you have to really, like, pay attention and keep in mind. And this part right here, you just have to remember what enemy is and what area where you're going. Not much you can do to avoid enemies here. And this is another area that you have to be really careful about, because everything here is a breakable block, and there's a ton of enemies here that can shoot very far away if you're not careful. Like, there's two guys on each side here. And just the way the Gordos and this enemy was playing, I couldn't really get up there very fast, so I had to wait. But I ended up getting around him eventually. It cost me a little bit of time, but it's just the way the Gordos and when the time the enemy spotted me, actually, so. But this is another Master Hand sub-boss. They actually use the same sub-bosses quite often, actually. But they're not too hard, and they actually can help you, so. But after that, we're just right back on our way with wheel. And that's an unbreakable block for wheel, so we have to actually go over the top. If we had something like a hammer or something, like a rock maybe. Rock can't do it, but like something that can like damage it sideways would actually break through that block. But since we're fast enough with wheel, we can just go over the top and not waste any time. There was a lot of enemies in that room that it was hard to avoid. Now we ditch wheel for rocket or missile. I turned just a little bit too early there. I think missile is by far one of the hardest power-ups to control in the game. And since I'm playing on the American version, there's actually a difference from Japanese to the American version. The American version actually does less damage than the Japanese version. The Japanese version, I think, does 1.5 damage more than the actual USA cartridge. They're the same speed though, so it doesn't really necessarily matter because you don't use missile to kill anything in this game, but it does make a difference that way. So here we grab fire, and depending on if our teammates actually have useful abilities or not, we call them in to help us too, because they actually can help you fight the Master Hand and Crazy Hand. Another Smash Bros. Character, since they're from the same creators. So right there, green guy actually helped me, and he jumped up and actually hurt the second hand with Parasol. And it kind of stinks that we get to skip the Kirby dance most of the time, because in this game, if you have your teammates to help you, you actually do a really cool, like, 4-person Kirby dance, but unfortunately, since it's faster to skip it, you don't get to see it in this run. But yep, after that, we get wheel once again. And head back to Peppermint Palace, because there's an actual, like, instead of going to the space level, we actually go to another area and actually in Peppermint Palace with this really, really cool music. I honestly think this game has some great music for a Game Boy Advance game. This part's kind of weird because that roly-poly, that's the guy's name, he always lands in that area and you can't just walk over him. You have to actually, like, use your attack into him. Else he hurts you and you lose your power. But at this point, you really don't need it. So that's why I get rid of it here in just a second. Because I kept on accidentally rolling into walls there, so I just got rid of it because I don't need it at this point. The boss is right here, so that's why we don't need it anymore. We just grab Parasol. Parasol is the best against this boss. Now this boss is a little bit tricky, because he can just run into you to hurt you. So depending on what he feels like, he can just jump over you like that, or he can run right into you. So it just depends. In this fight, I got pretty good RNG for where he just decides to do. He just kind of decided to hop back and forth like that, not actually hurting me. And I was able to finish him off by just kind of jumping with the Parasol into him. So that's the 7th boss. We only need to kill one more boss. And I don't reset at this point because the boss, like the next area that I need to go is directly underneath me. And I don't need to grab wheel. So we get to watch the cute Kirby dance. So right here we get rid of Parasol immediately and grab Rock because Rock is really useful for the next sub-boss that we're going to fight. Plus, it's kind of like, you know, upwards and downwards for this area, so not really wheel-friendly anyways. You also need it to pound down stakes like that. You can use hammer as well, but hammer or rock works just as good, so... So this is the next sub-boss. It's Bonkers, which actually appears in quite a few Kirby games, if I'm not mistaken. But since we don't need rock, we just get rid of it. We ditch. We don't get that. We actually ended up getting throw. Throw is the power we wanted. I just ditched it on accident when I was over the other power, which gave it to me again. So this is the 8th boss. His name is Molly. And he's another, like, he's not hard at all. He's just RNG of what he wants to, when he wants to pop up and where he wants to pop up. But all we do is grab an object from him and actually just hold it like we're damaging him. So Molly can actually, like, really, he can really waste time, or he can make sure we gain time. This depends how he's feeling. So now we actually have the full mirror complete. And I reset to, and it depends what you want to use for the final boss. I prefer using rock, but I actually call my teammates in here first before I go to the next boss, because if you're actually, they're in the homeworld with you while you enter the final level, they follow you and they actually don't even help you. They just kind of get in the way and like waste time by losing their power and then trying to suck in more powers and stuff. They don't actually help, they just get in the way and waste time. So we call them in that room just so we can, you know, get them out of the main place so we can fight Dark Meta Knight. Now, most people use throw. Rock kills just as quick. Throw is like useful if you get the perfect moves for him. If you don't do that, you're kind of like actually wasting time. So this is like a quick kill. So we suck both the like Meta Knight sword and the power up we just had, and wait for him to open his chest up, which is his weak point. By using both those items to throw at him, we actually get a quick kill, which saves a ton of time of fighting. And we actually have to fight him quite a few times. So we grab another power up, and they give us another sword. So we ditch both powers again, suck both of them up, and there's the next boss fight, which is another version of Dark Mind. We open for him to open his chest up again, and we get another quick kill. And just wait till the next area goes. And every single time you go to a new area, it's kind of like a tiny puzzle. And it, like, sometimes they actually really aren't puzzles, they're just kind of like, you know, hey, choose your way and you can get something like health or a 1-up. And here we grab another power up just so we can do the exact same thing. Just kind of rinse and repeat. Again, wait for his chest to open up, and we have another dead Dark Mind. And we have to go around here to get sword to actually activate this next door. Now we inhale for sword ability. And we just open that door now. And yet again, we actually will use the double throwing, you know, of both the powers again. Now this is actually one of the Dark Minds that are actually different than the others. And at this point he kind of gave me some really bad RNG. Instead of like giving me moves that I can hurt him with, he's actually doing some of the things that I can't do a thing against him with until he like flies low enough for me to guarantee a hit. So with that power, I can't actually hit him or anything like that. And then he drops another ball, which, again, I can't hit him yet. And these automatically do damage to me, so... Finally, at this point, he does give me a part I can hit him. And I decide to see what I can, what power... I'm supposed to get a green one to finish him off, so I can get a random ability. But I call in my teammates to give me health, since I was given unfortunate luck. And while I was trying to get a green star, which actually gives me a power mix wheel, where I will try to get UFO, but instead my teammates actually killed him. So that was just an unfortunate part there. Nothing really I could do about it. UFO is the best way to kill this boss, which is the second phase of Dark Mind. His actually like true form. The next thing, the like, you know, the next best thing is the sword. So, the Master Sword of Meta Knights. So instead of using UFO, I use this weapon instead. Again, teammates aren't really doing much, so it's just me doing the moves. That move right there actually usually kills my teammates pretty fast. I accidentally get Parasol. And with all the unfortunate things that happened, I actually ended up dying. But since my teammate was there, all the damage I did to the boss was still there. Because it registers him as like he's still fighting the boss when I revive myself. So then Shadow Kirby throws me another Master Sword, which I'm actually able to finish the boss. There's two ways you can actually do damage to the second version of Dark Mind. Is you can actually hit his mirrors, or you can hit his eye. Mirrors do more damage because there's two of them, and his eye isn't always open. So that point right there, I actually did hit him. And now we're on to the final fight. There's a lot of fights you do with Dark Mind, but this is actually the last one. So we grab our Warp Star to go fight him with. And it's pretty straightforward. You just press A to shoot him. There's no technique to it. Besides avoiding getting hit. Which I got hit a lot in this fight, but it's okay. At this point I only had 1 health left, so I was really trying to avoid all of his hits. And we ended up with a 37-11. And that's the end where the credits roll, and where you can keep on shooting him to see how many hits you get in the bottom right. But that's the end of the run, basically. So I hope you guys like it. And Kirby and the Amazing Mirror is a really fun game to run, especially for any percent. And it's very challenging, I think, as a speed game. There's a lot of technique you have to do to it, and it's a very fast-paced game. If I were to run this game, I think an estimate of 45 minutes would be okay to run it, since you can make mistakes, but you can continue on even if you make minor mistakes and still get a pretty good time. So 45 minutes would be just perfect, and for an estimate, and that's pretty much it. I hope you guys liked it. Thank you very much for looking through this submission.